Let's talk about, we always do it, the double standards and the hypocrisy of our good Democrat voter and activist friends. Take a look at this story from Timcast.com. Ukraine says they have supplied 18,000 weapons to citizens. Anti-gun leftists celebrate their efforts. My favorite is Occupy Democrats. Let me pull up this image from Defiant Els. Occupy Democrats first tweeted, "No civilian needs an AR-15, regardless of whatever mental gymnastics you do. You are a very special breed of stupid." And they then, about 6 years later, breaking, Ukraine's interior minister announces that 10,000 automatic rifles have been handed out to the civilians of Kiev as they prepare to fight tooth and nail to defend their homes against Putin's invasion. RT if you stand with the brave people of Ukraine. Now, hold on, everybody. I think Occupy Democrats are right. I think Joe Biden's correct. You know what? I was wrong to criticize the establishment when they said Putin was a very real threat. I stand corrected, you guys. You're right. I think our government should join in as well and give all of the United States citizens some automatic weapons.
Yes.
So because Vladimir Putin's such a big threat to all of us.
We could be next.
That's true. Yeah, we could be next. Yeah, right. I'm terrified.
And China, but Putin. So I'll take a fully a select fire Kalashnikov.
Yeah.
Something while you're handing them out.
Regarding this guy's first tweet where he's talking to the air and then he says you're stupid. This is something I think people should avoid. This is a little off topic. When you're using social media and you're like complaining towards someone and you start insulting them, if you do it on social media, a lot of people that are unintendedly reading it are going to feel like you're insulting them.
Yeah.
So don't do that.
You are a very special breed of stupid.
Yeah, who are you talking to me?
No, they're talking to themselves.
Apparently.
Because now they're tweeting that they actually say civilians, like, no civilian needs an AR-15. To be fair, they're handing out Kalashnikovs.
Oh yeah.
So it's
they do need AKs.
Keep in mind here, they still think AR stands for automatic rifle.
Yes.
So what's crazy is they don't think any civilian needs a semi-automatic rifle, but they are thrilled about fully automatic AKs going out to people.
That's actually a really good point. Maybe we're being mean to our good friends. Yeah. No civilian needs an AR-15. Yeah. What they're really saying is it's semi-auto.
It's not
sufficient.
No, you need select fire.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right. Not against tanks.
If one of those selects is not full auto, then Occupy Democrats is not satisfied.
That's right.
Start
there you
go.
go.
50 BMG. Yeah. So maybe what they're really saying is that no civilian needs a semi-auto single shot. Come on,
yes.
You need full auto.
That's right. Only the best.
That's what they're getting at the whole time.
But let's talk about the asymmetrical warfare though, because this is the reality. When you try to invade someone else, the big challenge for Vladimir Putin is going to be demoralized Russian soldiers, a finite amount of them, versus the entirety of Ukraine civilians who have remained, who are going to be like, I'm going to fight you.
Which is actually surprising. There's a number. I think a lot of people, and I think Putin thought this would be something where, hey, as soon as the armored divisions go rolling across the border, president's leaving the country, nope.
He put on body armor.
Yeah. I mean, you got to hand it to him. Like
Poroshenko took out a gun.
Right?
I don't know if I believe it. It's propaganda.
But it's good propaganda.
Believe it, yeah.
If you're trying to rally, let's face it, especially when you're engaging in asymmetrical warfare, you are the weaker party. Propaganda is one of the key things you're going on. We still got Democrats that think that we lost the Tet Offensive. Right? Why? Because Walter Cronkite said we lost the Tet Offensive.
Oh, I thought we lost the Tet Offensive.
Yeah.
Didn't people just get rolled over?
Yeah.
North Vietnam and all down Vietnam. Didn't the Americans get annihilated?
No, didn't.
What happened?
Yeah. Are you serious?
On the Tet Offensive, what happened? Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Well, real quick segue.
Yeah.
So okay.
Go for it.
So
in Vietnam.
In Vietnam, the Viet Cong launched a massive attack all throughout the country during Tet, which was supposed to be a ceasefire within the Vietnamese calendar, right? And so they made like some fairly major gains quickly, but with in several weeks, they had taken massive amounts of casualties. We're talking 20-1. At that point, it was after the Tet Offensive that the North Vietnamese army had to start coming in and supporting because we had almost wiped out the Viet Cong after the Tet Offensive. They threw the kitchen sink at it and they got obliterated. So it looked bad overnight, partly because our own military leaders were saying, oh yes, they're on their heels, they can't do anything. Well, they launched this major offensive that was unexpected. They got temporary gains, but they got destroyed. But it didn't matter. The propaganda campaign that went along with it made it look like, one, the military or the government was lying to the people, which is certainly not hard to believe. And then the other two was that this never would have happened if we were actually in the good shape that we were. And as Thomas Sowell likes to say, when a democracy decides you've lost the war, you've lost it. And so that was the problem. But again, if you look at something like this, the propaganda component for an asymmetric force is critical.
Psychology is one of the most important things in a war.
Yeah.
That's why we're seeing so much propaganda, because making people feel like we can win, we should win, and we have to win is important to keeping people in the fight. So there's a video of Poroshenko, throwing a strap over. He's got a rifle of some sort, and he's like, I'm here on the ground, and he's like, here's all the other people I'm fighting with. You've got President Zelensky, and he's like, I'm with the prime minister, I'm with the cabinet from this guy. We're here on the ground. He's got like a vest on, because the people of Ukraine, they're going to see that. And they're being handed out guns.
Yeah.
And and when you see your leader on the battlefield with you, they're going to be like, it's like my favorite movie, The Patriot, with Mel Gibson. I often cite.
Good movie.
When he says, hold the line, and he runs back when they're retreating, and then they pull forward and win. That's the thing. But let me tell you, you mentioned we got into Vietnam. I got to tell you the story I read. It's fascinating. So the U.S. was trying to engage in psychological warfare. It's something I read on the internet. Perhaps it's not true. And so what they did was, they knew that the Vietnamese were very superstitious. So they made these creepy recordings of wailing, haunting Vietnamese, like Viet Cong soldiers, saying, why did I fight? I should have gone home. They believe that if you are not given a proper burial, you're forced to haunt wherever it was you died. So in the forestry, the jungle or whatever, they're playing in these loudspeakers, wailing Viet Cong voices saying, flee while you still can, or you'll be trapped like me. It was so effective, the South Vietnamese fled as well, and so they had to stop doing it. Just, I don't know if it's true. It sounds amazing. It's
like magic.
It's one of those stories you hear, it's probably apocryphal or something.
Yeah, it's one of those stories that if it's not true, it ought to be, right?
Right. Yeah. It's kind of messed up, though, going after people's, it's like a psychic attack on the
superstitious cultures tend to get wiped out, I think. Are there any that exist anymore? I don't think so.
There's a lot of superstitious cultures.
Like the Christians?
Cal Berkeley. No.
There's Christian and Islam, which are both kind of superstitious.
There's tons of, Americans have tons of superstitions.
But, it's easy to manipulate someone if they're superstitious.
Go to a casino. And you will see
I did
how superstitious
or a sporting event.
Or a sporting event.
Yeah.
So you'll see a guy tap his Coke can 5 times.
Yeah.
Well, that concerns me because superstitious people are easy to manipulate.
Well, it's like Michael Scott says, I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious.
Yeah, man. So let it be known. They're giving out all these guns to regular people because it works.
Yeah.
I want to see Biden hitting a speed bag. I need some motivation. Get on the floor, bro.
Yeah, let's go.
That's a funny
Give
thought.
me some speed.
I'll tell you what'll be interesting on this, though, is that, and this is the part where, okay, again, how does Ukraine stall Russia? How does Ukraine capture the press and the media and the propaganda and all of this? And this is going to be interesting because it's the first war we've seen like this where literally everybody has got access to the world to some degree from their phone.
Yeah.
So you imagine partisans out there doing this sort of stuff and then making a TikTok about it, right? That's going to be a fascinating thing to potentially watch from not just from a propaganda perspective, but a sharing information perspective. Because if you don't think terrorist organizations already use social media in order to coordinate their activities, that there's, regardless of what ends up happening here, there's going to be a lot of research and study going into how social media influenced it from a propaganda, from a coordination standpoint, because there's good ways for partisans to fight and there's really stupid ways for partisans to fight, and partisans should not be taking on a T-90 with their AK-47, right?
It's just crazy. I'm trying to figure out why Putin would do this. And the only thing I come up with is it's the last great hoorah of a dying empire.
They're not part of NATO. If I play Crusader Kings 2, I play a lot of battle conquest, grand simulation strategy games. And if you have a lot of countries with a defensive pact against you, but one of them isn't in the pact, that's the country you hit and you take it fast. And then you're done. And then no one complains anymore. It's just back to base 0 again. And hopefully no one else signs up for the pact. And if someone drops out of the pact, they're a meaty target.
Oh, he's got a war-weary United States, which is the only one that has any teeth. He's got a Europe that's been hit by COVID and doesn't want to deal with this crap. And everyone on the Western side can say Ukraine wasn't a part of NATO. Now, if you do it to Poland, we'll be pissed.
Poland's not in NATO right now.
Excuse me, if you do it to Estonia, right, we'll be pissed.
Poland's in NATO.
Yeah, Poland's in
NATO.
NATO.
So is Estonia. Yeah.
Yeah, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania.
Should we get out of NATO?
Yeah, what do you think? Because we've had those conversations here.
Yeah,
We pull all the weight.
we do pull all the weight. It's going to be interesting to see what happens because, well, NATO hasn't been attacked, right? So it would be interesting to see. Well, not that I'm wishing for this. I do think that there's something to be said, and this is the part where I'll probably get a little bit amped up, because again, I've lost friends overseas fighting wars that, I'm not so sure were the best decision on America's part. But one of the things that has maintained the level of peace that we've seen since World War II, and obviously there's been horrible conflicts in Vietnam, in Korea, and other places that we've been involved in and that we haven't been involved in, but nothing like the massive bloodshed we saw in World War I and World War II. And the reason why we have that, and the reason why for the last 30 years we haven't even imagined a conflict like this, the reason why this is surprising the living piss out of everybody is because of U.S. military dominance. That's why. The same thing that a lot of our allies are constantly bitching about and coming to the United States and talking about, they're always throwing their weight around. They're always going, yeah. And because we have, and because people know we can, it has kept people at bay, and no one's going to convince me otherwise. It really has. I think
so.
Yeah.
And so now we're at a point where you have a war-weary United States, you have a global pandemic that took place, we have a country that we have no legal obligation to defend. And I think that the kind of the world order post-Cold War is being challenged right now by Putin. And he's probably picked the best possible time to do it. And again, that's why I said that. The same countries that will want the United States to intervene, to do the heavy lifting for them, if we decide to do it, will be bitching about us 6 months from now. And so I don't think we should. Now, does that mean do we pull out of things like NATO? I think there's value with the United States being the preeminent military power. And I think that does do something to preventing other nations from getting a little bit froggy when they shouldn't. But one of the things, again, that I appreciated about how Trump handled this was he went back to NATO and he made it a very real possibility that you might not be able to rely on us because you're not pulling your weight. And that's not the same for allies that we have in like South Korea or Taiwan. They do pull their weight. They do recognize the threat, and they do recognize their responsibility to hold back the threat. And yes, they depend on the United States for support, but they don't have this expectation that they don't got to do the fighting because we got this. And so I think one of the positive things that could come out of this is a lot of these countries that it's become real popular to trash the United States are going to realize that, you know what do you think your country would look like, Western Europe, if it was Putin that had the military and economic power that the United States had? You think we'd be having these conversations?
Nope.
You think we'd be talking about Eastern Ukraine, or you think we'd be talking about the south of France right now? So just remember, as much as the United States may screw up on our foreign policy, as much as we might, at a time where we had all the power, all the money, all the military might, show me the country that we annexed into the United States in order to expand our own empire.
Well, Iraq.
But we didn't. We don't own Iraq.
Not on paper.
No, not at all. I mean, again, the way that you look at Russia. If Russia takes over Ukraine, watch what happens in Ukraine. It's going to be nothing like what happened in Iraq.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the Spanish-American War. What I've read about it is that the Americans basically liberated Cuba. For better or worse, they didn't invade and take it. They kicked the Spanish Empire out, and we're like, now Cuba's free.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't do that in the Philippines, but
right, we didn't do that in the Philippines or on Wake Island or on Midway.
And this is not me suggesting that the United States military has not had our own little brush with empire where we've done things that we shouldn't have done. I mean, go look at what Lincoln was saying about the Mexican-American War. Go look at what Grant was saying about the Mexican-American War, about how we kind of picked a fight with a country we knew we could kick the crap out of and then got a lot of territory from it. So, like, again, I'm not saying we're perfect. But if you look at the situation of the world, it has been the level of peace and security that has existed in certain parts of the world, especially in Western Europe, has been as a direct result of U.S. military dominance.
It's the Kissinger limited war doctrine. He was a big part of creating this idea that we're going to fight proxy wars only so that we don't go to total war.
I mean, I'm not a huge Kissinger fan.
Me neither.
No.
But that was his.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Kissinger fan, and I think I don't like to call it the proxy war idea that, like, okay, if we just get involved in a bunch of little wars, we'll stop big ones. I do think there's an argument to say that there is such a thing as the Sudetenland moment, right, where there was a point where the French military, the British military, if they had intervened in Sudetenland, or if they'd intervened when, the Nazis were going into Czechoslovakia and just carving it up because they could, would that whole scene turned out a lot differently than if they waited all the way till Poland. And I think there's an argument to be made there. I think there's an argument to be made that you identify when someone has larger aspirations, when they have the military and capability to do it, and you intervene at a point where they realize that, okay, we're not going to get away with this. You don't let them build up a certain significant amount of power to where they now can potentially get away with it.
That's kind of what we've been doing in Iran. Well, like I've heard the Stuxnet, we blew up infrastructure.
Yeah.
I think have they targeted them with weapons, blow up weapons depots and stuff. I don't know how hot it's gotten.
The Stuxnet was obviously fairly significant, and they've also tried to manage their growth through sanctions and.
So we could have done that to Germany. Looking back in retrospect, we could have tried to somehow disrupt their rise to power, but it was internal. It was like, how could we get involved and stop the military machine from creating itself?
No, I think it's more of, and again, I always side with non-interventionists, and then you need to explain why something is so significant that the United States men and women need to bleed for it, right? That's my starting point. Now, when you're talking about something like Germany, again, when you have internal issues, I tend to say, look, you stay out of those. Those are internal issues. Peace of Westphalia, right? But once you start seeing naked aggression, like you did with the Sudetenland with Germany, or like you did with Czechoslovakia, then I think there is some argument to say, like, okay, is it appropriate at this point to intervene on some level? Now, there's a big difference. There's I'm trying to think of the word now. There's levels of force that you apply, right? There's an escalation of force. Not everything has to be like, you went into the Sudetenland, I'm nuking Berlin, right? It's not that. But
Sounds like Trump.
Yeah, right.
I'll hit Moscow.
But that's the thing. There's a difference between, okay, what's going to be your escalation of force, right? That's what you know. That's not what you share with the rest of the world. You want Putin thinking, you send one Russian troop into Ukraine, right? And I'm going into Moscow, right? It's going to be, I'm going to set up a Trump hotel in downtown Moscow, right? Because he doesn't know if you're actually going to do it. And so that's where there's a difference between, okay, what should be our actual strategy versus what sort of strategy should we project, right? And our enemies don't get to know this one. They just get to know what we're capable of.
Biden said recently, the minor incursion, it depends on if it's a minor incursion.
He gave, that was preemptive appeasement.
That was so
Biden
stupid.
should have said outright, we'll go into Moscow.
All right, Biden's the Neville Chamberlain of our time.
Yeah.
And worse, possibly the Buchanan.
Yeah.
But he could have said, we won't tolerate this. Europe won't tolerate this. Ukraine, Poland, the Baltic states, Western Europe, none of it. If Putin makes this move, we go into Moscow day one. Try me.
Yeah, you get the president of France,
Instead, he's like,
England,
well,
Germany, United States.
The thing is, here's what I'll say, though. If Biden had said that,
he would have flubbed.
show of hands on who believes it. I don't buy that.
He would have been reading a prompter, and he would go, "Come on, man, we're going to Moscow.
We're gonna whatever.
We're going to Moscow.
Look here,
forget it.
Corn Pop.
I don't
Going to
know.
Moscow.
Vladimir Putin's a bad dude who's got some bad boys."
Someone called
Yeah.
Putin a bad dude yesterday, or was that?
You know,
or
he
you
just
might have called him
said
a bad dude earlier.
Yeah.
I think he was going to say bad mother in the video. You can hear him start to say the word mother, and he stops himself and says dude
Jeez.
instead.
Yeah.
Bad
Biden said that?
dude. Biden, yeah. When he listens, he starts to say
Bad
dude real
dude.
weird. Bad dude.
Bad dude.
This is like when Hitler went into Poland to like reconquer part of Poland that had been stripped away after the First World War and give it back, because apparently he said there was a genocide of German expats in Poland that they were committing. Putin says the same thing. There's a genocide of Russians in eastern Ukraine that's been going on for 8 years. I haven't heard an inkling of this in the media. I don't know if it's real or complete propaganda, but this was Hitler's reason for invading Poland, or part of it. Probably also to connect, more land bridges and stuff, because Hitler was like ready to take over the world.
There's a conflict in the Donbass region, and you've got people saying, yeah, the separatists are dying. You've got people saying Ukrainians are dying. And both sides will use what they can to justify their positions.
Yeah.
I don't know who's more right or more morally right. I don't know. I know that both sides are making those assertions.
I think Putin is doing what he wanted to do, and then he found reasons to do it.
So I guess my question is, should we treat this like how we treated Hitler invading Poland? Where it's a different time, and I'll preempt that. I don't either, because America took Iraq 20 years ago, and that gave the Russians opportunity to match the playing field.
You can't look. Two wrongs don't make a right. The U.S. screwed up with Iraq and Afghanistan.
They're screwing up today by still being
absolutely.
there. It's not like it happened. It's happening right now.
And screwed up miserably leaving
screwing up
Afghanistan. But we can't be like, well, Russia gets to take a sovereign country because the United States did it too. That's
well,
you can't do that.
And even then, the thing that I go back to is that with Iraq and Afghanistan, there was no point where Iraq became the 51st state, or Afghanistan became a territory. Now, again, I think there was huge problems with the way we did a lot of it. Now, I don't think it was wrong to go after the Taliban. I don't think it was wrong to go after terrorism. I don't think any of that was wrong. I think there was something significantly wrong with this idea that we're going to come in here, completely devastate whatever current government is in charge, and then we're going to go ahead and recreate you on our image.
But I think it was Ron Paul who said that when it came to the Taliban after 9/11, we should have issued letters of marque and reprisal, specifically targeting the group, not the country, not going after Taliban.
They would have cannibalized each other. It would have been awesome.
Instead, it was like, let's nation build for 20 years.
Oh, no, if you look at the initial invasion, so again, in the military, I was Army Special Forces. It's better known as Green Berets. Green Berets focus on unconventional warfare, counterinsurgency. What does that mean? It means when we go into a country, we work by, through, and with local allies, the indigenous population. You look at the opening days of Afghanistan, we're talking about, you had agency in there, you had several hundred Green Berets working with the Northern Alliance. And within, a couple of months, like they had kicked the Taliban out of like Kandahar. And it was all by, through, and with the local population. And what would have been fascinating to watch, and who knows what would have happened, what would have been fascinating to watch is what sort of organic solutions people would have come up to. And I'm sure it would have been, ugly, and I'm sure it would have been brutal at times, everything else. But it wouldn't have been the United States saying, no, we're not just going to fight the Taliban. We're going to take over the entire country. We're going to take over the entire war. It's now our war. We're going to help you with your infrastructure. We're going to help. Because some of this, I don't know if you've ever read the book or seen the movie, Charlie Wilson's War. A big argument that they made is that we went in there to help the Mujahideen against the Soviets, and then we didn't stay behind in order to help with some of the infrastructure, and so it got out of hand. And so this time was, we're not going to repeat that mistake. We'll just double down and take over the whole damn thing. Okay, no, you're trying to impose certain cultural, political, social changes on a culture that is not necessarily interested in the social changes that you're trying to affect. It doesn't matter whether or not you think it's more moral than what they currently have. If you don't have buy-in there, then don't expect to be able to do it unless you're willing to stay there for 100 years.
That's my concern with Iraq. They say it's not a state, but what's the plan? Either we're going to be there for 100 years and it may as well be a state.
We have no significant military presence.
Right, yeah,
in Iraq.
it's drawn down substantially.
I just don't believe that. I don't know where that idea comes from, but it's like locked down by the United States. Or whoever's there. Is it American weapons in the Iraqi puppets' hands? Like, it's a large nation that has been well defended by the United States for 2 decades.
Oh, we have not been a significant military force on the ground in Iraq for, gosh dang, we're probably, I'm trying to think of the actual, I was last over there in 2008. I think by 2013 we were really drawing down significantly. So no, we have not had a significant military presence in Iraq for, it's getting close to, 10
I think
years
under
now.
Obama, he pulled all the troops out of Iraq, put them into Afghanistan.
He moved a lot down there, then he reinforced in Afghanistan, and by the time Trump was in there, we have a huge embassy over there. There was some military presence, but that was one of the big complaints, right? Is that the reason why ISIL was able to come in and do so much was because we didn't have a significant U.S. military presence.
It seems like Iraq is a staging ground, and so is Afghanistan for like Russian interference.
surrounding
Iranian.
Iran.
They've got Syria on the border. They're close to Egypt in the south. They've got their eyes poking into Saudi Arabia's north border.
Well, that's been, Saudi Arabia was during the Cold War, Iraq, especially Syria and all that was very clearly Soviet sphere of influence. Iraq was a little bit because they were taking most of their military equipment. Egypt was Soviet influence at a certain point, and then Saudi Arabia was more U.S. influence. So it's just been an interesting dynamic. But keep in mind, all those borders were drawn by British map makers. So.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.